Prahlad is born after having heard everything from Narada Muni while still within the womb of his mother for a very long time, 100 celestial years, while Hiranyakashipu was with his arm raised doing his austerities. That's a long time to hear Srimad Bhagavatam. So he was born a pure devotee from that purification that he received from hearing from Narada. In the case of Dhruva, he didn't start like that, but he became like that. So it's especially relevant going from mixed to pure devotion. And, from this over here, mixed to pure devotion. So there are elements involved in what happened with him. And so the context, this is Canto 4, Chapter 8 through 12. And the period of time is the very dawn of creation. So we'll say this again. The Vedic picture of time is, time moves in cycles, like day and night, and it keeps cycling and cycling. And then there's weeks, and there's months, and there's years, and there's all kinds of bigger cycles. Ages of mankind, the 4 yugas, and they cycle again and again. And 1,000 of those makes a day of Brahma, and they cycle again. And so Dhruva appears at the very beginning of creation, not just one of the yuga cycles. And it's Satya Yuga. Satya Yuga means the age where the means for purification is dhyayate, meditation. So we're going to hear some of the austerities and the meditation process that Dhruva received from Narada. We heard that yesterday. And then now he's going to practically apply it. And it's pretty amazing. So Dhruva is 4 generations away from Vishnu. Vishnu's first born living being is Brahma. Brahma has many direct praja from him, but one of them is the first Manu, Swayambhuva Manu, and his wife Shatarupa. They're born directly from the body of Brahma, no assistance from a wife. He's very powerful, and voila, he manifests Swayambhuva Manu and Shatarupa. And they're given some service with folded palms. They come before Brahma and ask for, what service would you like? He gives them some service. Part of their service is to fill up the universe that Brahma just finished creating. So the very first beginning stages of creation. So Swayambhuva Manu and Shatarupa, they have some children. There's 3 daughters, 2 sons. One of those sons becomes Dhruva Maharaja's father. And some misfortune happened. In this world of duality, sometimes there's good fortune, sometimes there's ill fortune. Something very unfortunate happened. The stepmother, or the co-queen, so Dhruva's mother's name was Suniti, and the king, Uttanapada, had a co-wife, or queen, and her name was Sunasti, or Suruchi, but I call her Sunasti. Very nasty. And she insulted Dhruva in a really harsh, really cruel, very envious, Dhruva was hurt. Dhruva turned to his father. His father said nothing. So we're going to hear, during this session, one of the things we're going to hear, the first thing we're going to hear is how Uttanapada felt about his neglect and not extending some form of kindness and affection and protection to his son. He feels terrible. He should feel terrible, and he feels terrible. So Dhruva went to his mother. Her name is Suniti, and Suniti did many wonderful things. Among those many wonderful things, she gave him the seed of bhakti. Because he was just in I want to get back at my stepmother and my father. He was that was his spirit. A Kshatriya, oh yeah, I can't sit on the lap of my father, I'll show you. Spirit. Chivalrous Kshatriya spirit. Little boy, 5 years old. So his mother directed him to go to Vishnu. Because Vishnu is the source of everything. Vishnu can supply anything, everything. Mission impossible becomes possible. Go to Vishnu. So he went to the forest looking for Vishnu. And he didn't find Vishnu. But Narada found him, sent by Super Soul within the heart of Narada, to give him direction how to reach Vishnu. And there were some other things in between, but that's a little background on what we've covered so far. There's a lot more, but that's the basic outline of where we are this evening. So we're going to be covering the concluding portions of chapter 8, and then a beginning part of chapter 9. And it's really interesting, and it's a little bit long. But that's okay, because it's really interesting. And I thought of dividing the section differently, but it fits, so we'll do that together. The image shown on the screen over here, that's Dhruva as a king. And most of these chapter 8, or all of chapter 8 and chapter 9, is Dhruva as a small boy. Along with the process of meditation that he received from Narada, he also gave him mantra, the celebrated mantra. Let's say it together. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. And deity worship and austerities and dhyan, meditation process, purification, by taking bath in the Jamuna. He gave him a place to go, Mahavan, one of the 12 forests of Vrindavan. And where we left off was Dhruva circumambulated Narada with heart full of gratitude for what Narada had just given him, that feeling that he wasn't judged by Narada because the other advice that Narada gave him wouldn't stay in his heart because he was in this, I got to get a kingdom mentality. So Narada very kindly gave him initiation into this mantra and a process to achieve Lord Vishnu. And so the section is being called, and this is my language here, Krishna Comes. So the section opens with Dhruva has left, heading for Madhuvan, and Narada is considering he better go pay a visit to the king, his father, Uttanapada, because I left my glasses. Because he knows, we heard earlier, Narada has among his different gifts from Krishna, he has the capacity to know everything past, present, and future. Pretty good. We don't know everything present, what to speak of past and future. Perfectly. So he knew Uttanapada is having a hard time. So we went back to the palace of Uttanapada. So this is Maitreya Muni speaking to Vidura about this whole event. After Dhruva entered Madhuvan forest to execute devotional service, the great sage Narada thought it wise to go to the king to see how he was faring within the palace. When Narada Muni approached, the king received him properly, offering him due obeisances. After being seated comfortably, Narada began to speak. So we're not going to have interactive sections like we have been having, but this is just, I'm calling it reflection. So, and seriously, I invite you to think about this question. Even though the king was in distress and in lamentation, he did not fail to receive the saintly Narada Muni with all respect. Sometimes we find ourselves, or we're interacting with others who are really distressed. We may be really distressed, or someone we're interacting with is really distressed, and they're beside themselves with normal behavior, like etiquette and protocol, and like even just being aware of your presence, or you being aware, you're just absorbed in some terrible, horrible something. So this little section is, before you do something, there's these sequences, thinking, feeling, willing, and that's in the mind. So I'm just going to read this and pause a bit. What are some character-based thoughts and feelings that would propel us to offer all respect to others despite our own troubled state of mind in a given situation? I'll tell a little anecdotal, personal thing. Some time ago, maybe 20 years ago, one devotee asked me, "Are you upset with me?" And I didn't know what he was talking about. And I said, "I don't know what you're talking about." He said, "Well, in such and such a situation, you walked right by me, and there wasn't acknowledgement, and I thought maybe you're unhappy with me about something." And then it came to my mind, that situation with that particular devotee, and I was so absorbed in some horrible thing that just happened to somebody. I was so absorbed in that horrible thing and what I could do to help that devotee that I was like blinders. No peripheral vision at all. It was just thinking about the situation, what I could do about the situation. And the other person felt I was not like I was ignoring them, but I was unhappy with them and just like not paying attention to them because of that. I'm glad you brought this to my attention. Thank you. And, one of the things that I'm still learning is peripheral vision, please. You know, it's not just what's happening, this contemporary phrase, be in the moment, be present, the Buddhist thing. But part of being in the moment or be present or, you know, is not just what's going on inside you, but the world around you and acting in an appropriate manner. So being a cultured person, this Uttanapada, even though he neglected his son, he felt deep regret for that, and he was those deep, sad feel. I mean, imagine you have a 5-year-old child. You neglect the 5-year-old child, and they run off. In this case, they didn't go down the street. They went to the forest. You have a 5-year-old child, and just leave home and go into the forest. What are you going to feel like? Pretty bad. So he's feeling really bad. And then Narada comes. And he's feeling really bad, but he doesn't just get absorbed in his own autobiography. He's concerned about proper respect to a most respectable person. So now we're going to go on. Starting with text 64, I'm just going to read. So Narada has asked this question. He goes on, "My dear king, your face appears to be withering up. And you look like you've been thinking of something for a very long time. Why is that?" I mean, he knows, he's just examining and opening the door for communication. "Have you been hampered in following your path of religious rites, economic development, and sense gratification?" The king replied, "Oh, best of the Brahmanas, I am very much addicted to my wife." That's the Sunasti. "And I am so fallen that I have abandoned my all-merciful behavior, even to my son, who is only 5 years old. I have banished him." He didn't banish him, but he insulted him by neglect. "And his mother, she was also neglected." He didn't literally say, "Get out of here." He just neglected her so much that she wasn't around. She wasn't in the palace anymore. She was off somewhere. And he didn't care. Even though he's a great soul and a great devotee. "My dear Brahmana, the face of my son was just like a lotus flower. And I'm thinking of his precarious condition. He is unprotected. And he might be very hungry. He might have lain down somewhere in the forest, and the wolves might have attacked him to eat his body." And then his final, "Alas, just see how I was conquered by my wife. Just imagine my cruelty. Out of love and affection, the boy was trying to get up on my lap, and I did not receive him, nor did I even pat him for a moment. Just imagine how hard-hearted I am." Now we discussed this, the Hridaya Daurbalya principle that's discussed in Bhagavad Gita. Arjuna speaks like that to Krishna speaks like that to Arjuna. This is Hridaya Daurbalya, is weakness of heart. Daurbalya, weakness of heart, where one knows what is to be done and one doesn't do it because of weakness of heart. And in Arjuna's case was his duty, and he was neglecting his duty. In the case of the king, he's a father. He's a king. His duty is to give protection. It didn't give protection to his 5-year-old son. He was spoken so harshly. So he's feeling terrible. And then Narada speaks. So here's Narada's first words. My dear king, please do not be aggrieved about your son. He is well protected by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Although you have no actual information of his influence, his reputation is already spread all over the world. Now, not a whole lot of time has passed. They didn't have text messages and internet and all kinds of, but, they had people talk. So word gets around. You know how it is. When something bad happens, word gets around real fast. Something good happens, it takes a while longer. But even then, so all over the world, he's informing him. His reputation is already spread. My dear king, your son is very competent. He will perform activities which would be impossible even for great kings and sages. Very soon, he will complete his task and come back home. You should know that he will also spread your reputation all over the world. The great sage Maitreya continued, the king, Uttanapada, after being advised by Narada Muni, practically gave up all duties in relation with his kingdom, which was very vast and wide, opulent like the goddess of fortune, and he simply began to think of his son, Dhruva. Now that's good because Dhruva is an exalted personality, so he's going to get purified just by thinking about Dhruva. And then in the commentary, there's some discussion about some points like this one, this Sharanagati point. Sharanagati means Sharana, Agati, Sharana, take shelter, surrender, take shelter of the personality of Godhead, and Agati means going unto that position of surrender. So our acharyas asked this question, how can one live in the forest and not be taken care of by anyone? He's a little boy, didn't have any lunchbox or anything. How's he going to change of clothes, and where is he going to sleep, and snakes and mosquitoes and tigers and this and that? Narada gives the answer. Such persons are well protected. And what are such persons? Persons who Sharanagati, persons who surrender, accept, or have the firm belief that wherever the surrendered soul lives, he is always protected by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He is never alone or unprotected. Now, he was alone, but he wasn't alone. He was protected by his always present companion, Supersoul. Narada, Dhruva had faith in that because his mother had faith in that, and he received from his mother her virtue. She was the most virtuous, she was a pure devotee. We had this discussion, those of you that have children, and even those of us that don't have children. Imagine sending a 5-year-old boy to the forest alone to find Vishnu. Who's going to do that? But she had all faith in Vishnu, that Vishnu would protect her son, and remotely she's praying to Vishnu, please protect my son. It's described later. That was her position. She had full faith, but that doesn't mean, okay, he'll take... She was praying, and the prayers of such an exalted person as Suniti went to Dhruva, and Vishnu protected him. And Narada understood this as well, so Narada is sharing with Uttanapada. Anyone who engages in devotional service anywhere within this universe is never unprotected. So that's the palace section. Now we're going to go back to Dhruva in the forest. Elsewhere, Dhruva Maharaj, having arrived in Madhuvan, took his bath in the river Jamuna and observed fasting in the night with great care and attention. After that, as advised by the great sage Narada, he engaged himself in worshiping the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Now this is a detail, but a question came up during one of the earlier sessions. If he's doing meditation, dhyayate, that's the means for perfection in Satya Yuga, and specifically Narada says, I'm going to give you the teachings of the Ashtanga Yoga system. So the Ashtanga Yoga system carries one to bhakti, done properly. So Narada wasn't just doing meditation, ho-hum. He was doing meditation upon the personality of Godhead, chanting his mantra, worshipping the deity form of the Lord as instructed by Narada. He was engaged in bhakti, but a strong emphasis was upon meditation, of course, including meditation on his mantra. Prabhupada's purport, so I put this in really big letters, our only concern should be how to execute the order of the spiritual master. A spiritual master is expert in giving special instructions to each of his disciples. If the disciple executes the order of the spiritual master, that is the way of his perfection. So Dhruva is transitioning from mixed to pure devotion. He's transitioning from get back to mixed devotion, to pure devotion. And so the process is given by Narada, and it's very effective and very interesting and very severe, the austerities that Dhruva underwent. And we're going to hear about those austerities. Don't try to imitate Dhruva. For the first month, Dhruva Maharaj ate only fruits and berries on every third day, only to keep his body and soul together. And in this way, he progressed in his worship of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That was month number 1. Every 3 days, fruits and berries. Second month, Dhruva Maharaj ate only every 6 days, and he changed his menu. His eatables, he took dried grass and leaves. Yummy. Thus, he continued his worship. In the third month, he drank water only every 9 days. Think about it. He remained completely in trance and worshipped the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who was adored by selected verses. In the fourth month, Dhruva Maharaj became a complete master of the breathing exercise, and thus he inhaled air only every 12 days. You can't do that. It's not just hold your breath for 12 days. Very powerful yogi. In this way, he became completely fixed in his position and worshipped the Supreme Personality of Godhead. By the 5th month, Maharaj Dhruva, the son of the king, had controlled his breathing so perfectly that he was able to stand on only one leg, as the picture shows, just as a column stands without motion, and concentrate his mind fully on the Parabrahman. He completely controlled the senses and their objects, and in this way he fixed his mind without diversion to anything else upon the form of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Obviously, Dhruva's not an ordinary person, because it was said by Narada, and Narada said it specifically to Dhruva, Dhruva, the austerities that you have to undergo, great sages and tapasvis and yogis, and for lifetimes they try to do this and they don't achieve, so just go home. But Dhruva was very determined, so he's an exceptional. Who knows who Dhruva was in his previous life? It's not just a previous life, it's a previous creation, because this is the beginning of creation. But he has some special endowments, like from the get-go. It's not ordinary. But the principle of us accepting some inconvenience of the senses so that the mind and senses can become directed more towards the personality of God, that's the principle. So now the next set of verses is describing what's the effect in the universe of his meditation. When Dhruva Maharaj thus captured is in yellow letters, Dara Yamanasya. When Dhruva Maharaj thus captured the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is the refuge of the total material creation, and who is the master of all living entities, the three worlds began to tremble. And our acharyas take this word, Dharaya Manasya, he had taken into his heart. So Jiva Goswami talks about this, or writes about this. How is it possible? The Brahman, how did he capture Brahman within his heart? And he gives this explanation. Because Brahman, the normal conception of Brahman is, you know what? It's the all-pervasive Brahmajyoti. That's the Brahman. So how did he put that in his heart? Jiva Goswami says that the Supreme Personality of Godhead is the origin of Brahman, for since he comprises everything material and spiritual, there cannot be anything greater than he, personality. Many persons, especially the Mayavadi philosophers, consider Brahman the biggest, all-expanding substance. But according to this verse and other Vedic literature, such as Bhagavad Gita, the resting place of Brahman is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, just as the resting place of the sunshine is the sun globe. Srila Jiva Goswami, therefore, says that since the transcendental form of the Lord is the seat of all greatness, he is the Supreme Brahman. Since the Supreme Brahman was situated in the heart of Dhruva Maharaj, he became heavier than the heaviest, and therefore everything trembled in all three worlds and in the spiritual world. Now, why it trembled in the spiritual world, don't ask me, but that's what it says. So Prabhupada goes on to describe then these three features of the absolute truth, Brahman, Parabrahman, and Bhagavan, or Paramatma and Bhagavan. So he was experiencing the Paramatma feature, and the Paramatma feature is resting on, but the Brahman feature is resting on the Paramatma feature. By associating constantly with the Supreme Personality of Godhead in his heart, Dhruva Maharaj naturally became equal to the greatest Brahman by his association, and thus became the heaviest, and the entire universe trembled. The next verse, interesting. Watch the picture move. Okay. Good graphics, huh? That's an elephant stepping on a boat. The boat moves. I'll do it again. Okay. As Dhruva Maharaj, the king's son, kept himself steadily standing on one leg, the pressure of his big toe push down half the earth. Just as an elephant being carried on a boat rocks the boat left and right with his every step. They have a festival in Mayapur. They have an elephant. He used to be small, now he's big, Gulab. And sometimes they take the elephant on a boat for a festival. And it's really dangerous because when he steps on the boat goes way over here, and everybody has to go way over there. And then he steps to the other side, he goes way over the other side. It's a fact. When an elephant steps on the boat moves. It's this way, that way. So Dhruva became heavy like that. When Dhruva Maharaj was at home, this is the verse, although he was a king's son, he was prevented from getting on the lap of his father. But when he became advanced in self-realization or devotional service, by the pressure of his toe, he could push down the whole earth. That is the difference between ordinary consciousness and Krishna consciousness. In ordinary consciousness, a king's son may be refused something, even by his father, but when the same person becomes fully Krishna conscious within his heart, he can push down the earth with the pressure of his toe. This must be purport. So, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur explains, maybe I've wondered, maybe you've wondered, what push down the earth? So he explains there's this term pradesha, and pradesha is a measurement of distance, and the measurement of distance is, Vishwanath says, the earth sank down 1/2 a pradesha, or 1/2 of 5 inches. So anyway, that's his explanation. Srila Prabhupada indicates elsewhere 1 pradesha is sometimes translated as 6 or sometimes 8 inches. But he pushed the earth down a few inches with his toe. That's the explanation. When Dhruva Maharaj became practically one in heaviness with Lord Vishnu, the total consciousness, due to his fully concentrating abhidhyayati and ananyaya dhya, and closing all the holes of his body, the total universal breathing became choked up. And all the great demigods and all the planetary systems felt suffocated and thus took shelter of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So Dhruva is a very powerful little boy, and all over the universe, including even in the heavenly planets, the flow of air was interrupted. They couldn't breathe. Prabhupada's comment, the example of Dhruva Maharaja's closing the holes of his personal body and thereby closing the breathing holes of the total universe clearly indicate that a devotee, by his personal devotional service, can influence all the people in the whole world to become devotees of the Lord. Pretty cool photograph, huh? I don't know if the artist made that light look that way, or it's just some light coming through the window shining on Prabhupada, but it illustrates the purport's message. If there is only one pure devotee in pure Krishna consciousness, he can change the total consciousness of the world into Krishna consciousness. All great fortune to the world by the presence of pure devotee. So now is another section. The demigods go to the abode of Lord Vishnu by the ocean of milk, pictured in the background there. And there he is in the reclining on Ananta Shesh. And the demigods are with Lord Brahma, and they offer prayers to Lord Vishnu. The demigod said, "Dear Lord, you are the refuge of all moving and non-moving living beings. We feel all living entities to be suffocating. Their breathing process is choked up. We have never experienced such a thing. Since you are the ultimate shelter of all surrendered souls, we have therefore approached you. Kindly save us from this danger." Beautiful painting, huh? Prabhupada's purport: the Supreme Lord is the ultimate goal for the solution to all problems within this material world. In the spiritual world, there's no problems, but the material world is always problematic. There's a problem shown in that illustration. Poor Ajamila. Vishvam Purna Sukhayate. Prabhupada quotes Chaitanya Chandramrita. That's a text written by Prabodhananda Saraswati, indicating devotees are free from all problems because they're fully surrendered unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead. For a devotee, everything in the world is very pleasing because he knows how to use everything in the transcendental loving service of the Lord. Vishvam Purna Sukhayate. So Vishnu replies to the demigods, "My dear demigods, do not be perturbed by this. It's due to the severe austerity and full determination of the son of King Uttanapada, who is now fully absorbed in thought of me. He has obstructed the universal breathing process. You can safely return to your respective homes. I shall stop this boy in the severe acts of austerities, and you will be saved from this situation." Vishwanath says, "He has simply concentrated his mind on me. This will not destroy anything." So there's Dhruva with his mind fixed on Vishnu. And that's the end of the chapter. And now we're just going to a few verses in chapter 9, and we're done. So he's doing his dhyayate, his meditation, and the Lord appears and empowers Dhruva. So the first verse of the chapter, the great sage Maitreya told Vidura, when the demigods were thus reassured by the personality of Godhead, they were freed from all fears. And after offering their obeisances, they returned to their heavenly planets. Then the Lord, who is non-different from the Sahasra Shirsha incarnation, got on the back of Garuda, who carried him to the Madhavan forest to see his servant Dhruva. So we'll spend some time, a little bit, what's this Sahasra Shirsha incarnation? Some of you know from the Purusha Sukta mantras, they're from Rig Veda. It begins Sahasra Shirsha Purusha Sahasraksha Sahasrapat, etc. Sahasra Shirsha. It's a prayer. The Purusha Suktas are prayers to the Purusha, to Lord Vishnu. He's the Purusha, referred to in those prayers. So Vishnu, who was lying in the ocean of milk, in Svetadweep, the island in the ocean of milk, that's the planet of whom? It's the planet of Shiradakshay Vishnu. Shiradakshay Vishnu is the name that we normally connect with the form of Paramatma in the heart. So there's three Vishnus. Mahavishnu, who generates the universes, Garbhodakshay Vishnu, who enters within each universe, an expansion of Mahavishnu, and that Garbhodakshay Vishnu expands himself within every atom and within the heart of every living being. That's Kshirodakshay Vishnu. So this planet that the demigod visited is Kshirodakshay Vishnu. And it's from that place, Kshirodakshay Vishnu's planet, Svetadweep, that the Lord descended. That's the Sahasra Shirsha incarnation. And with him is Garuda, and Garuda carries him to this material world, the earthly planet, and specifically in Madhuban, where Dhruva is. The Sanskrit Madhyor Vanam Britya Didrikshaya Gatar means, by means of Garuda, the Lord went to Madhuvan with a desire to see his servant Dhruva. So there's many such nice paintings. Here's another one. And in Prabhupada's purport, he writes, according to Srila Sanatana Goswami, in his Bhagavatamrita, the Sahasra Shirsha personality of Godhead who appeared at that time was the incarnation known as Prishnigarbha. He provided the planet known as Dhruvaloka for the habitation of Dhruva Maharaj. Now, those of you that were with us earlier, the earlier 4 sessions, it's actually the very first one, Rupa Goswami says the same thing. What that is, that form that Dhruva saw that appeared before him is Prishnigarbha. It's in Bhagavatamrita, there's a whole section. Here's another reference where Sanatana Goswami is stating the same thing. This personality that appeared before Dhruva is Prishnigarbha. Vishwanath writes like this: it is understood from Laghu Bhagavatamrita, that's Rupa Goswami's writing, that the avatar who appeared in front of Dhruva was Prishnigarbha. He is called Sahasra Shirsha, which refers to Garbhodakshay Vishnu because they are non-different, both being Vishnu. So Sahasra Shirsha in the Rig Veda is referring to Garbhodakshay Vishnu. So we'll do it again. There's 3 Vishnus: Mahavishnu, Garbhodakshay Vishnu, Kshirodakshay Vishnu. Commonly, that's Sahasra Shirsha Purusha, Sahasraksha, Sahasrapad. It's describing the process of creation. Vishnu is the source of the creation. So Vishnu is the source of Brahma, and Brahma fills up the universe. So Sahasra Shirsha literally means thousands heads. Sahasra Shirsha. It's Garbhodakshay Vishnu. But it's okay because Garbhodakshay Vishnu, Kshirodakshay Vishnu, they're both Vishnu. Yes? It's very interesting. There's distinction. There's, you can say, adjectives describing this Vishnu, that Vishnu, that Vishnu, based upon function, but it's one Vishnu. I'll say it again and say it the third time. How many of us are assembled in this room? Maybe 30. How many super souls are there in this room? Super soul is variously manifest, but there's one super soul. Now, super soul is an expansion of Garbhodakshay Vishnu. Per universe, there's one Garbhodakshay Vishnu. And how many universes are there? Too many to count. How many Garbhodakshay Vishnus are there? One. Variously manifest. Mahavishnu is one. He generates the universes and so forth. So there's 3 Vishnus, but there's one Vishnu. Although there's different Vishnus based upon function. That's what Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur's writing here. So the Sahasra Shirsha form appeared before Dhruva and its Prishnigarbha by name. Text 2. The form of the Lord, which was brilliant like lightning, and in which Dhruva Maharaja in his mature yogic process was fully absorbed in meditation, all of a sudden disappeared from his heart. Thus, Dhruva was perturbed, and his meditation broke. But as soon as he opened his eyes, he saw the Supreme Personality of Godhead personally present, just as he had been seeing the Lord in his heart. So specific. This Vishnu feature, the Paramatma feature that he was seeing in his heart, appeared before him in his Bhagavan feature as Lord Vishnu. Here's Jiva Goswami's interesting commentary. Listen carefully. It's a little subtle. In their trance of separation, the devotees of Vraja are aware of nothing but Krishna. Their ecstasy is so deep that, as a natural effect of remembering Krishna, they see him physically before them. Other pure devotees, whose love for Krishna is not on the same level of perfection, have separate experiences of him internally and externally. Dhruva, for example, concentrated his mind on Lord Vishnu in deep meditation, but his internal vision of the Lord did not expand into a vision outside like that of the gopis. Only when Lord Vishnu came to Dhruva to offer him special mercy did the Lord disappear from Dhruva's heart to show himself externally. Far out, huh? The residents of Braja are in this most exalted state. So one of the, those of you that are with us the first evening, there are certain benefits that Prabhupada was listing about hearing of the Dhruva story. And one of them is this one. And that is, the Lord comes to one who has devotion for him. In the process of meditation, besides the meditate on a candle or meditate on a blank wall or meditate on nothingness or something, those that meditate on Vishnu, the yogis that can concentrate their mind on Vishnu, there must be an element of bhakti for them to continue and for the Lord to then appear before them. And this is what happens in Ramayana. It's a different age. In Ramayana, it's the next age. This is Satya Yuga, then comes Dwapara Yuga. Treta Yuga. So, the sages in the Dandak forest, we spent some time in the Dandak forest having a yatra, a pilgrimage. So we learned this from the Ramayana commentaries. The personality of Godhead, Ram, made this arrangement for Mantra and then Kaikeyi to do their thing so that he could go to the forest. And when going to the forest, he spent 12 and a half years just going to hermitage and hermitage to hermitage to do the same thing that Lord Vishnu is doing with Dhruva, which is the sages were in meditation on him, wishing to have his vision, his darshan. So he came. He came. And they were very happy. Their life was fulfilled. He did the same thing with Dhruva. The Leela is different. The procedure to get there was different. But it's the nature of the Supreme Lord. It's an important thing for us to understand about the person who is worthy of our taking shelter. It's exactly what Suniti said. He is the worthy person to take shelter. And he is the worthy person to take shelter. He's so merciful. Now, Dhruva, the exaltedness of Dhruva is surpassed by the exaltedness of the residents of Vrindavan, because they're always seeing Krishna even when he's absent. Which is like, It wasn't that Dhruva was hallucinating. Nor is it that the residents of Vrindavan are hallucinating. But they have such intense feelings of love in separation. They see the Lord present, although they're still feeling separation. It's quite mystical. And then he comes. And even when he comes, it's described. There's this anxiety, soon he's going to leave. So their love is intensified by he's soon going to leave, anticipation of separation. So if you don't want to have those kinds of feelings, don't become a pure devotee. But there are such feelings. But they're ecstatic feelings, there's not painful feelings. And it's a mystery. Okay, so now Prabhupada goes on. In the Brahma Samhita, it is said, Premanjana Charita Bhakti Vilochanena, a saintly person who has developed love of Godhead by devotional service always sees the Lord's transcendental form of Shama Sundara. This Shama Sundara form of the Lord within the heart of a devotee is not imaginary. You all know who is pictured in this image? Bilvamangala Thakur. He is engaged in, he's blind, but he's seeing Krishna. And Krishna is so attracted by his beautiful singing, Krishna comes and sits and listens. There's interesting things that in their conversations back and forth. Purport: when a devotee becomes mature in his prosecution of devotional service, he sees face to face the same Shamasundar he has thought of during the entire course of his devotional service. So we just have to become mature in devotional service. Small thing. So here's reflection number 2. We had a reflection on, you remember with the previous one. Simply remain with the bhakti process given by our acharyas and Krishna comes. Now it's not like he becomes our order supplier. Hey, Krishna, come on over. But it's the nature of, the loving nature of Krishna. And not only he comes, he stays. That is, in our hearts. Although he may go to Mathura or go to Dwarka or go somewhere, he stays in the hearts of his loving devotees. So we're almost done. When Dhruva Maharaj saw his Lord just in front of him, he was greatly agitated and offered him obeisances and respect. He fell flat before him like a rod and became absorbed in love of Godhead. Dhruva Maharaj in ecstasy looked up upon the Lord as if he were drinking the Lord with his eyes, kissing the lotus feet of the Lord with his mouth, and embracing the Lord with his arms. Acharyas emphasize it's iva. He didn't actually do those things, but that's what's in his heart. And so many nice paintings of this moment when Dhruva sees the Supreme Lord riding on the back of, looks like a pigeon, not Garuda. All these features of Dhruva Maharaj's bodily expression indicate that upon seeing the Lord face to face, he developed the 8 kinds of transcendental ecstasy in his body. And verse 4. Although Dhruva Maharaj was a small boy, he wanted to offer prayers to the Supreme Personality of Godhead in suitable language, but because he was inexperienced, he could not adjust himself immediately. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, being situated in everyone's heart, could understand Dhruva's awkward position. Out of his causeless mercy, he touched his conch shell to the forehead of Dhruva Maharaj, who stood before him with folded hands. Now this is the second time that Dhruva is getting his head touched. The first time was Narada, the benedicting hand that removed all sins of Dhruva. And this is touch of the conch shell of Lord Vishnu. Prabhupada's purport: the personality of Godhead being situated in everyone's heart specifically gives a devotee intelligence. To describe him, it is therefore understood that when a devotee writes or speaks about the Supreme Personality of Godhead, his words are dictated by the Lord from within. There's an illustration of that. Little Prabhupada story. Who can imagine how each of us are busy, but somehow we've taken some time to come here and sit together and hear Krishna Katha together. How busy was Prabhupada? Who can imagine? And you feel like maybe some stress or some pressure about all your different duties. Multiply that a few million times and you'll get some idea of what was the weight upon Srila Prabhupada. And yet sometimes he would sit and have devotees just read the Bhaktivedanta purports. And he wouldn't get tired or get distracted. He would sit for hours. And sometimes he would say, I have not written these books. Krishna has written these books. I was simply the scribe. So who can understand what this image is showing? That Krishna was dictating and Prabhupada was simply writing. We can imagine, but it's to be understood. This is what the exchange that happens on the transcendental platform for such exalted souls. When Dhruva Maharaj felt hesitant, not knowing how to describe the Lord for want of sufficient experience, the Lord, out of his causeless mercy, touched his conch shell to Dhruva's forehead, and he was transcendentally inspired. This transcendental inspiration is called Brahma Maya, because when one is thus inspired, the sound he produces exactly corresponds to the sound vibration of the Vedas. This is not the ordinary sound vibration of this material world. Therefore, the sound vibration of the Hare Krishna mantra, although presented in the ordinary alphabet, should not be taken as mundane or material. Now, our consciousness is one thing, but the sound vibration of the Bhagavatam and the Maha Mantra and so forth, that's not of this world. And one may think it is, but it's not. And we're going to end quickly now. There's this celebrated phrase, we've mentioned it several times, here it is again. Swamin katartosmi varam nayache. This is a phrase that Prabhupada would refer to again and again in reference to the Dhruva story. It comes from Hari Bhakti Sudodaya. Here's the explanation. Oh my Lord, because I was seeking an opulent material position, I was performing severe types of penance and austerity. Now I have gotten you, who are very difficult for the great demigods, saintly persons, and kings to attain. I was searching after a piece of glass But instead I've found the most valuable jewel. This is what Prabhupada is referring to. You have mixed devotion. You may be starting with, along with Vishnu or Krishna, I want this and that and the other thing. Om Jai Jagadisha Hare, the song. So when one actually gets the personality of Godhead, it's what we'll hear. Dhruva is embarrassed over what his hankering was. The next section is his prayers. So, therefore I am so satisfied that I do not wish to ask any benediction from you. Jiva Goswami's commentary says, these are the words of Dhruva. They do not spring from full realization of the sweet aspect of the Lord. These words arose from the touch of the Lord's conch. However, it is evident that gradually he obtained that realization. This is a distinction between, say, Braja Prem and the status that Dhruva had attained. The spontaneous love of the residents of Braja is being honored here by Jiva Goswami, and previously also in the other commentary of Jiva Goswami. This is from Priti Sandarbha. Jiva Goswami wrote commentary on Srimad Bhagavatam based on subject. That was one of his 3 commentaries. And in Priti Sandarbha, Priti is love. That's the goal. So Dhruva achieved a certain goal. He achieved Vaikuntha, consciousness. And he's contrasting the special, unique love of the residents of Braja, which is even beyond Vaikuntha, consciousness. Braja Prem is very special. Okay. This is the last verse. At that time, Dhruva Maharaj became perfectly aware of the Vedic conclusions and understood the absolute truth and his relationship with all living entities. Little boy, 5 years old, understanding all these things, didn't even go to school yet. In accordance with the line of devotional service to the Supreme Lord, whose fame is widespread, Dhruva, who in the future would receive a planet which would never be annihilated, even during the time of dissolution, offered his deliberate and conclusive prayers. And in the purport, Prabhupada writes, Dhruva Maharaj never went to any school or academic teacher to learn the Vedic conclusion, but because of his devotional service to the Lord, as soon as the Lord appeared and touched his forehead with his conch shell, automatically the entire Vedic conclusion was revealed to him. That's a pretty good school method. Just find Vishnu and get his conch shell on your head, you're all set. The commentary says, let's say the verse together, Yasya deve para bhaktir yata deve tatagaro tasyaite kattita hyartha prakashante mahatmanaha. The Vedas indicate that only to one who has unflinching faith in the Supreme Lord as well as in the spiritual master is the Vedic conclusion revealed. So Dhruva had, when we had our first session, what are some of the outstanding features of Dhruva? And the outstanding feature of Dhruva was great faith. He had faith in his mother. He had faith in Narada. And he had faith in the personality of Godhead. And he achieved what he achieved very quickly. All the knowledge, all the import of the Vedas became revealed to him. Conversely, one can become a big scholar. I call them puffy wuffies. Filled with scholarship, but not understand properly. Common. Very rare is to find one with pure devotion, but with that pure devotion that everything becomes revealed. So pure devotion to both Guru and Krishna. That's what the verse says. Yata deve tata gurau. So Dhruva exemplifies. This is how to go from mixed to pure devotion. And it's 8:45. I told you it was going to be a long session, but not too many people left. Any questions or comments? Yes? Do we have a microphone? I'm looking in the back there. Somebody may know how to get this going.
So, I understand that Krishna fulfills one's desire, and Dhruva had the desire to have the kingdom or bigger than what his father had. So, is that the reason why, though he said, like, I don't have any benedictions, but I'm not asking for, but still Vishnu gave him this planet? But one who sees Krishna, would they...
One who is?
One, like a devotee, one who sees Krishna.
Sees Krishna.
Yeah. One who sees Krishna, would he even desire for any other thing other than being with him? I mean...
yes, what you're saying is precisely correct. Confirmed.
So then, is he happy?
He had given it up. His starting point was something else. His ending point was something else. That's what the previous Swami Guitar told me. I was searching for a piece of glass, and instead I've gotten this jewel. I don't want anything. So what you're saying is correct. But the starting point was, his mother gave him the bhakti principle. Before that, I just want a kingdom. I want to get back. Then mixed. And then gradually pure. So the answer to your question is yes. In his prayers, read the next section, starting with verse, whatever it is, 6. The very first thing he says is humility. I'm so ashamed. No, first thing is he speaks about being empowered. His senses are all now enlivened, as if dead, now alive. Then he says, how foolish. I couldn't take the instructions of Narada to give up this get-back mentality. And so now I have to take the fruit of my get-back mentality. And I have to get this kingdom. So he goes, anyway. He regret for having carried material desire for so long is a natural outcome for one who becomes a pure devotee. He's feeling it, even in the presence of Vishnu, what to speak of after Vishnu leaves.
So after Vishnu leave this devotee, is there not like anxiety of separation?
Is there not what?
Anxiety, separation anxiety?
Of course. Absolutely. But, Krishna's going to do whatever he wants. And we have to accept that. This is Lord Chaitanya's prayer. You can embrace me. You can leave me brokenhearted. You can trample me under your feet. You can do with me whatever you like. Now, most people don't have that consciousness. We have our demands. But that, he'll do with us whatever he likes. And if, depending upon the consciousness that one carries, he can do whatever he likes. That doesn't mean no, if he goes away, that's okay, because that's what he likes. You're feeling separation. Like this little passage you read, the residents of Braja, when Krishna wasn't before them. There's this expression that says, when the cowherd boys were in the forest, sometimes there was a tree in between them and Krishna. And it seemed like 12 years or more, as they just separation from Krishna for even the distance of a tree passes in between them. That's intense. So they're feeling separation, sure. And then there's meeting. And then there's separation. With love comes such feelings. So it's better to not love.
Thank you.
Okay. Donna Kelly in the back, please.
Maharaj, I'm afraid I don't properly understand the point that was being made about the difference between Dhruva Maharaja's seeing Vishnu face to face due to the Lord personally coming on his own accord, as compared to the Vrajavasis seeing Krishna face to face due to it being an expansion of their meditation, and somehow that's better than what Dhruva Maharaj I'm afraid I don't understand that.
I'll try to respond. This is my understanding. I'm looking to our sadhu in the back seat back there and see if he wants to add to this. Well, let me say first, before you shake your head no. Maybe it'll be easier for me to explain based upon what I understood from Ramayana. And the understanding from Ramayana that I received is, the sages in the forest, they had purified their existence to the degree that they were hankering for the Lord's association, which was accessible to them through meditation. And Lord Ram wanted to fulfill their desire to see him directly, and therefore he made an arrangement so they could see him directly. He came to them. It's a strong point of emphasis in Govindaraja's commentary and Dandak Forest, because that's what is in a big part of what's in the forest is the sages, and the risk they were under by the Rakshasas, etc. So Vishnu came to them. Ram came to them because of their intensity of meditation. Now, that's similar with Dhruva. Now, the contrast is the residents of Braja, according to Jiva Goswami, even when they're not seeing Krishna in the intensity of their love, they see Krishna, although they're not seeing Krishna in front of them. That's the intensity of their love. That's the prema of Braja. That's the contrast, that as far as I can understand it. It's a unique kind of love. Now, in one sense, if they're seeing, what I'm understanding your question is, if they're seeing him in front of him or they're seeing him in front of him, they're seeing him in front of him. So and it's his mercy or it's his mercy, so it's his mercy. What's the distinction being made here? The distinction being made is that there was, for some period of time, Dhruva, or the sages in the Dandak forest, were not seeing the Lord in front of them. And he just, knowing that kind of intense hankering within their heart, he came before them. And then he left. He was no longer before them. The residents of Braja, there wasn't a before and after. They're always seeing Krishna.